Welcome. My name is Devin Yim, and I am one of the instructors for INSY2299. Today, we're having a makeup class due to storms, and we'll learn about total cost of ownership. So, today, what we're going to learn is total cost of ownership. What does that mean? So, imagine you're about to buy a car. When you graduate, most likely the biggest purchase that you're going to make is buying a car with your own money. And here's the one car, most popular car in America, Honda Accord. And what does it really take to buy this car, and how much are you really paying? Of course, there's the purchase price, somewhere around $25,000, depending on whether you're going to pay the full amount or down payment. There's also tax, registration fees. But that's not all. You still have to pay ongoing costs, such as gas that you'll need to operate the very vehicle. Sometimes you need to get an oil change, tire rotation, and basic maintenance fees. And you have to be prepared for some repair costs. Hopefully within the 5-year model that we're looking at, it may not be that much, but you do want to set some money aside so that you can be prepared if and when an accident or some damages occur that you'll need to spend some money on. And of course, if you decided to pay $5,000 as a down payment and finance the rest, then there's interest costs that you have to pay to the lending institution. So if you actually add this up, there's the initial cost that you have to put in, some ongoing costs to maintain and operate your vehicle, and assuming that you could sell the vehicle at 48%, and Honda Accord actually has the highest resale value, then what you're really paying is somewhere between $26,000 or $29,000 should you get financed the loan. So this comes to roughly about $440 to $497 per month that you're actually paying to own the car over a 5-year period. If you're primarily using your vehicle to commute to the places that you're going to work, is it really worth that money? Well, let's compare. Cost of a 30-day unlimited Metro card, which means you can use it as many times as you want, is somewhere around $104. So obviously, if your primary purpose of owning a vehicle is to commute, then it makes more sense to use the public transportation than to own a car. So now let's take the same example back to owning a database management systems. We have just made a purchase of database management systems, but you are concerned about how much it actually costs to own this database management systems because technology is getting faster, cheaper, and better at an exponential rate. What that means is technology is going to be cheaper very, very soon in the next year or 2 or 3 after you just made that purchase. And your need to have data is doubling twice every 8 months. Means that if you own a data for 100 people today, you're likely to need data for 200 people roughly 8 months from now. So the need is getting faster, which means that you have to upgrade and maintain your database every 8 months. And at the same time, the cost of buying a new one is going down every year as well. So now you have to wonder, does it make sense to own and maintain database management systems? So here's a graph that kind of shows you, just like in the car example, a breakdown in terms of total cost of ownership for owning a database. So right here, you can see that the purchase is only about 20%, which is a big contrast from owning a car. Where is the rest of the cost going to? Costs including in operating the database management systems, such as administration. There you need to pay someone to maintain this database. Downtime, assuming that for whatever reason technology went down, then there's a cost associated with having the system going down. And of course, there are additional costs such as environmental impact, backup and restore, and hardware management. So in summary, price that you pay in the beginning of a purchase may not reflect the rest of the cost that you have to pay as you own and operate the database management systems. So here's a brief comparison. What are the actual costs in maintaining and operating the database? Well, in order to put the servers, you need to have space to put that server. Number two, to have it operating or running, you also need to pay power and cooling time. Number three, if you need to upgrade every 8 months or every 16 months, you have to pay the vendor cost of upgrading the hardware, physical server, as well as getting an upgrade version of the software, which is a software upgrade. And of course, you have to pay the person who's maintaining the database, and believe me, they don't actually come very cheap. They're very expensive to hire. So here's a simple graph that's showing cost of operating rises much faster rate than cost of buying the hardwares and softwares. So assuming that you figured this out, you have to ask questions about, can I make sure that my data is going to be available all the time? Because if they're not available, then there's some cost involved with not having data available, which we'll cover in the next slide. But when you ask a vendor, will my system be up all the time? They will typically give you an answer that says 99.9% of the time. What does that really mean? This is an actually potential amount of time you will actually lose based on 99.9%, 99.99%, and etc., etc. So even though your vendors may say your data will be available 24/7, it's not really true. Depending on what they actually say, you may lose anywhere between 5 minutes and 8 hours. So let's talk about what happens if you don't have data available all the time. Impact. This is what will happen. So for instance, you will lose reputation because you can't provide the service, or you could get a lot of complaints, and you may even lose business. And of course, some industry it's more important to have the data available than other industries. And here's a comparison of various industry in terms of cost of having data down. And obviously, if you're in a financial brokerage or banking firms, not being able to provide your customers information such as stock prices, your portfolio status, costs a lot more money than, let's say, some place like transportation. Okay? And again, if your data is not available, it means it's not just the customers, but also your own employees. Because imagine that you don't have a computer and you don't have access to the internet. You can't do your homework. Just like that, for financial employees especially, if the data is not available, the person that you're paying a lot of money can't work. What does that mean? For a financial institution, an average cost of downtime per employee is about $1,000. Means that if data is not available 1 hour, you just lost $1,000 per person that you hired. So what do? We need to be prepared for things that could happen. We've just gone through this storm and lots of disasters. During those times, first thing that happens, you lose power. So how do we protect against power such as fire, flooding, lightning, storm? We prepare ourselves by making sure that we have alternative ways to deliver information. So for instance, we can locate your databases in multiple places. So if there's a storm in New York City, hopefully you'll have a database somewhere in California where the weather is a little more predictable. Second thing, instead of owning your own database, which may cost a lot of money, you can also use what's called the cloud-enabled applications. Let someone else manage that disaster and preparation for that. So in summary, we've just learned about what it actually takes to own a database management systems in terms of cost and the ways you can be prepared against potential disasters or any other unexpected events. So in summary, today you've just learned about total cost of ownership. What does it actually take to own any database management systems? And hopefully, I hope you learned a lot and have fun in your break. Thank you.